So what's going on, social media land groupies? I know everybody's already heard the news by now about this Jessie Smollet situation. It's a horrible thing that he's done, creating a hate crime hoax against himself. And he done that just specifically to draw attention toward himself, thrust himself into the spotlight even more than what he was, because he didn't like the way things was going, and because he hates Trump. He had a political agenda, and he had an axe to grind, and he figured he would cash in on it. The Chicago Police Department did their job. They took it seriously. They had evidence of those two Nigerian brothers going in and buying the MAGA hats, going in and buying the robe, going in and buying the bleach. They know they did it. They know they were linked to it. They can prove it. And then yesterday they said suddenly that they're going to dismiss all charges and they're going to seal the case. The Chicago Police Department also said that they have a lot more evidence that will nail his butt to the wall. But they're sealing the case so they can't present it. Now there's only one reason to seal the case. That's to keep it confidential and keep anybody from finding out the truth. Suddenly he forfeits that $10,000 that he paid out for bond. Why is that? Why did they seal the case? So that nobody could see it. Why did they shut down everybody whenever the Chicago Police Department said that they've still got more evidence? Well, let's look at it. Let's look at the privilege in this particular case. Is he white? No, he's not white. Or he'd have probably went to jail. Oh, no, wait. There's something that could exempt him from that, too. He's gay, so he can scream that it's because he's black. He can scream that it's because he's gay, so he's a minority on both fronts. But if you really look at it, he's a Democrat. He's an anti-Trumper. He's a black guy. He's a gay guy living in the city of Chicago, and he's part of the Hollywood elite. In other words, he's got all kinds of privilege because he can create any excuse to play the victim that he wants to. And he's got plenty of money to get himself out of trouble. But then you got a lady, an aide, the Fox lady, who was working for the Obamas, Michelle Obama and them, calls him up about dropping the charges because the family's concerned. Now this guy is an empire actor. He's an actor. And somebody from the White House who worked for the White House and the former president decides to call him up and try to sway the investigation, sway the case, and now suddenly it's dropped. I think that's a big conflict of interest. Justice was not served. On top of that, you got the FBI having an investigation. Because the letter, the fake hate letter that he sent to himself, is a federal matter because it was put through the mail. It was sent to the news stations. So that case is still going to be ongoing. But you got somebody like this who suddenly pops up with charges dropped whenever his attorney and then Michael Avenatti got rolled over on for extorting Nike out of like $20 million. The very next day, his case is dropped. It's an awful good coincidence, ain't it? You got somebody like him that knows there's extortion going on, knows dirt on his lawyer working with Michael Avenatti, the porn lawyer, who also tried to take Donald Trump down, lost that case. Stormy Daniels had to pay Trump back almost $300,000 in a defamation lawsuit. So you look at all this stuff that's going on, and you start to think for yourself, how many of these people have colluded together with ties to the mainstream media in both situations to try to ruin the Trump presidency and ruin his supporters? It's not a coincidence. They're corrupt, they're dirty, and apparently if you got enough money and fame and you work in Hollywood and you can play the victim card and be useful to the Democratic Party, you don't have to answer for your crimes. That's the real privilege here in this country. Just because they dropped the case didn't mean that Smollett was not guilty. Because the court still considered community service as him serving his time, because had he been convicted of all 16 of these accounts that they charged him with, he would have basically been sent to community service and had to pay a big payday because he's rich. So in hindsight, he's guilty He already served his time, and he forfeited a $10,000 bond. And you know it's bad whenever the liberal mayor of Chicago, the far-left liberal mayor of Chicago, stands up and said that this is not justice. Justice was not served in this case. On top of the police department saying it. Smollett got by with it because he's a different kind of privilege than what the media wants to admit. And that's the problem with the US of A. And that's the problem with real privilege and people on the Democratic side of the aisle.